Greetings to everyone. My name is Kim John Bautista, 22 years old, and the author of the study entitled Modeling and Simulation, the Impact of COVID-19 Vaccination in the Reproduction Rate of Infection. I am from Notre Dame of Marble University in Philippines, and this would be my first experience in an international conference, so please bear with me. We decided to create this thesis study because COVID-19 had caused a major conflict in the lives of everyone. Coronavirus has been the major problem the whole world has been facing up to this current time. According to statistical data, as of 29th of August year 2021, there are 1,935,700 positive cases in the country of the Philippines and 33,008 deaths caused by the COVID-19 infection. During the critical period of COVID-19 pandemic, the government in different countries declares lockdown on their areas and issued memorandum to use non-pharmaceutical interventions like wearing a face mask, face shield, and regular sanitation to mitigate the rapid growth of infection in the community. And later on, the Food and Drugs Administration has announced the list of vaccines that are theoretically approved as safe and efficient, and then issued an emergency use of authorization to authorize the use of unregistered drugs and vaccines in a public health. However, despite of the availability of the vaccines, most of the population in the Philippines are hesitant in being vaccinated because of the following reasons. Majority of the people think that the vaccines aren't safe, and a few said that it might not be effective and it is not really necessary. Thus, it led us to our general objective that with the application of modeling and simulation, the purpose of vaccination can be demonstrated safely, and the results of how having a vaccinated individuals in the community can help in mitigating the spread of COVID-19 infection. Now, I will discuss to you the methodology of our study. Parameter values. In this study, an epidemiological simulation model is developed to demonstrate the effect of vaccination in mitigating the spread of COVID-19 infection and if herd immunity can be attained with the help of vaccination. In this modeling and simulation, the researchers used a planning scenario, which is a set of numerical values for the biological and epidemiological characteristics of COVID-19 infection. These numerical values of a planning scenario are called parameter values that can be used in models to estimate the possible effects of COVID-19. It is important to remember that the parameters in the planning scenarios are just estimates intended to support the public health preparedness and planning. In addition, other data are also acquired from the various articles and documents and related studies on the internet, like the National Center of Immunization and Respiratory. And some experts and medical workers confirmed these informations, namely Dr. Angel Argaliaza and Nurse Kenneth John Alpareja, who works in the Department of Health in the Philippines. And the table shows the simulation scenarios and parameter values. So the graphical user interface is designed through the drag and drop feature of NetLogo containing the different components necessary for the simulation model. We used NetLogo in this thesis study because it is one of the leading and easy to use integrated development environment for modeling and simulation. Building the model. The user interface shown in figure 2 contains the components, particularly the sliders and the buttons. These components are responsible to assign the parameter values of the model to create a scenario on simulation, which are linked to the backend program or the code of the model. The other portion of the graphical user interface of the simulation model contains various components called world, which acts as the environment wherein turtles or tuples move and interact. And there are also plots which are responsible for showing the results of the simulation through graphs that demonstrate the infection rate and recovery rate. And a monitor that displays the computed reproduction rate, or the R0, using the formula of the Kermack-McKendrick model. Application of the mathematical model. So the mathematical model used in this study is the Kermack-McKendrick model, which is one of the most known and the simplest SIR model. It is an epidemiological model that computes the theoretical number of people infected with a contagious illness in a population over time, given that in our model, we had an assumption that there is no birth nor death. And the model consists of three coupled nonlinear ordinary differential equations as shown in the presentation here, where T is time and S is the number of susceptible people, I is the number of people infected, and R is the number of people who have recovered and develop immunity to the infection. Beta is the infection rate and gamma is the recovery rate. At the end of the simulation, the R naught reflects the estimate of the production number of infections will decide whether will be or there was an epidemic. Our fourth equation is the mathematical computation of R naught, which closely follows the mathematical derivation of the first three equations. So the simulation, this will be a short video demonstration of our simulation. So to start the simulation process, the user assigned the parameter values which are defined in Table 1. Then, the user will click the Setup button to apply these parameter values to the whole model and call the setup procedure which will eventually create turtles on the world component. Then, the user will click the Go button. The Go button will call the Go procedure which will start the simulation. The Go procedure contains various conditions and constraints to call for different and appropriate procedures for a specific turtle. The simulation will only end when it reaches the stage where there is no infected person in the world. However, in some instances in a given scenario, the simulation will continue in a loop as long as it doesn't reach the herd immunity or if the majority of the turtles or people are still susceptible and infected. At the end of the simulation, a result of R0 is used to determine if there is an endemic based on the given scenario. Now let's proceed to results and discussion. The modeling and simulation were done through the use of NetLogo, as what I've already mentioned. 4 test simulations are conducted for each different scenario and parameter value. The initial number of turtles or agents in the population is set to 500, with an initially infected individuals taken from the 10% chance of initially infected individuals in the population. First, simulation results on herd immunity. Table 2 presents the result of the length of the simulation, which indicates the number of hours that pass from the beginning of the simulation until it reaches the state of herd immunization at the end of the simulation. Given that both conditions are presented to have a 90% chance of inoculation or vaccination, but it differs in the travel control, the results are not far from each other. When traveling across 2 continents or areas is off, it will put the simulation in the idea of lockdown that provides an average result of 387 hours. On the other hand, when travel is on, the average result will be 420 hours because there is a more chance of infection when an infected agent from another continent or area visits the other continent. The results of the simulation clearly shows that when vaccination and lockdown are at work, we will reach the state of herd immunization faster. Simulation results on reproduction rate of COVID-19 infection. Table 3 presents the list of the computed reproduction rate through the application of the Kermack-McKendrick model in the simulation model. R0 is an estimate of the average viral transmissibility in a population with mitigation measures and immunity, including the parameter values we used in this study. To interpret the results, we must understand that if R0 is less than 1, each existing infection causes less than 1 new infection, and eventually the disease will die out. If R0 is equal to 1, each existing infection causes 1 new infection, and the disease will stay alive and stable, but a lesser chance of an outbreak or an epidemic. If R0 is greater than 1, each existing infection causes more than one new infection. That means the disease will be transmitted rapidly between people and might be the cause of an outbreak or epidemic. And this information is all according to the National Center of Immunization and Diseases. And based on the accumulated results, there is an average R0 of negative 0.81, which means there is an end to the epidemic when travel is off, and there is a 90% chance that a person is vaccinated. To go further, there is a slight difference in the value of average of R0
You have
when
3
travel
minutes to
is off.
conclude, please.
Thank you, sir. As I was saying, there was an average R0 when travel is on, and there is a 90% chance that a person is vaccinated, which gives us a result of negative 0.76. From that slight difference in average R naught, the researchers understood that to end the COVID-19 epidemic, there has to be a 90% chance of inoculation or vaccination, regardless if traveling across different areas is allowed or not. On the other hand, an average of R naught is equal to 2.58 and 2.73 are computed respectively when travel is off and none of the population is vaccinated, and when travel is on and none of the population is vaccinated. From these results, it clearly shows that our R naught is greater than 1, which means there is an epidemic and it will continue. Based on the results of the simulation, there is an estimated 387 hours to 420 hours, or 17 to 18 days, to reach herd immunization in a population from the start of simulation when there is a 90% chance of vaccination. Thus, it leads us into our second conclusion that when there is a 90% chance of vaccination, regardless when travel is on or off, we will be able to mitigate the spread of infection provided that the results of our reproduction rate based on our Kermack-Macandrick model is less than 0. And for recommendation, our future extent, we would like to recommend that to extend this model and improve this model by conducting a social study on how accurate and precise the simulation model from the real world scenario. Also, it is highly suggested to include the mutation or the development of new variants of the virus and introducing other factors and variables like death, aging, and birth on the simulation model. Once again, thank you everyone for listening. My name is Kim Jen Bautista, and I am the author of Modeling and Simulation, the Impact of COVID-19 Vaccination in the Reproduction Rate of Infection. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.